Last night, the Cincinnati Bengals finally put their money where their mouth is and got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins locked up to massive 4-year contract extensions. So I want to talk about how this implicates the Atlanta Falcons because Dianna Russini shortly afterwards added that the Bengals are also working to retain Trey Hendrickson. And this is where Atlanta enters the mix because this is obviously a name that Falcons fans have been looking at as a potential trade target. And if he is off the market, the Falcons are going to have to turn to only one of two spots, most likely, to find more pass rushing help: free agency and then the draft. So let's start by looking at some of the free agent edge rushers out there. You've got some older players like Von Miller, Matthew Judon, Preston Smith, Za'Darius Smith. Then you've got some younger-ish players in Charles Omenihu, Lorenzo Carter, familiar face, Darrell Taylor. I could toss in Azeez Ojulari. There are still some recognizable names on the market after the first week of free agency. Right now, the name I'm starting to gravitate towards, though, is Za'Darius Smith for a few reasons. One, still a productive player. Had 9 sacks last year. I don't have expectations of him coming to Atlanta and putting up big double-digit numbers, but I have expectations for what you're likely going to pay him for his age and what you're going to get out of him is going to be a very good value, somewhat like Leonard Floyd. When they signed Floyd, I think I said, hey, this is not going to be the solution to your pass rushing problems, but it's a step in the right direction because it's an improvement from what you had last year. I think Smith could be a similar case. It's not the solution, but it's a step in the right direction because unfortunately, if you can't land Hendrickson, there's not a great option in free agency. Not like last year where you had Danielle Hunter and Jonathan Grenard, guys who were young and coming off monster seasons. That's not the case this year. So unfortunately for the Falcons, it's just not a great time to go to free agency needing help at the pass rusher position. So I'd rather just sign some good value players than make a ginormous contract so it looks like you fixed it because you threw $100 million at the problem when in reality you're just like the government and you're spending money trying to fix problems, and that's not how you fix problems. So Smith, you can look at over the past couple of years, 12.5, 10 sacks. In 2023, just 5.5 sacks, but he had a boatload of pressures for the Browns. Just couldn't quite convert them into sacks. And then this past year, splitting time between Cleveland and Detroit, 9 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. So I still think there's some good football juice left in Smith's tank. And when we look at Atlanta's front 5, they need to add more pass rushers, right? Right now you've got like 2.5 guys that you can actually rely on coming off the edge. Leonard Floyd, Arnold Ebiketie, and then a big question mark in Braylon Trice, the now second-year man from Washington who missed all of last season with the torn ACL. There needs to be another acquisition made in free agency, I believe, and I think Smith, for what it's likely going to cost you and what you're going to get, is going to be some really good bang for your buck right there. Now, in a moment, I want to talk about the draft and some other stuff as well, but I was looking over the YouTube analytics like I do every night before I go to sleep, and we have gone 26 straight videos with over 200 likes. So I just want to say thank you to the regular crew that always hits the thumbs up button. I wish YouTube would show me the names of people that like the video so I can give you a proper shout out. But if you haven't yet, scroll on down. Oh, sorry, the light just turned on. We'll fix that in a moment here. But scroll on down and hit that thumbs up button. Okay, we're back on track. We're still kind of in the midst of a construction zone, and for whatever reason, the zoning laws require automated lights. It's very annoying, but that's going to get fixed hopefully in the near future. Now, let's talk about the draft, because with Hendrickson, let's just say, out of the picture, and free agency not having a plethora of great options for you, the draft is going to become a focal point for the Falcons to nail the pass rushing issues and just the overall defensive issues after a down 2024 season. I've got a prediction with an asterisk next to it, and you guys are going to laugh because you know how my predictions usually go. But I think Atlanta trades back. The asterisk is I'm not going to say, like how Dallas terms a Falcon. I'm not going to say this with my chest completely because trades require two teams to partake. And while the Falcons could very well be looking to move back, they need to find someone looking to trade up. And if they don't find someone to trade up, then they have no other recourse than stay put at 15 and make the pick. So that's why I'm going to put a slight asterisk to this. I think Atlanta is going to look over the picks they have and go, we need to add a little bit more quantity versus quality. And if we can slide back 5, 6, 7 spots in round 1 and add another good pick in round 2, getting 3 players might be better than getting 2 when we couldn't get a splash guy in free agency or via trade. So I went over the trade value chart, which basically assigns a number value to all 252 picks. And what it spit out was, if you want to jump up to 15, you got to offer up something like this. So I thought the Packers could be a candidate. I'm not trying to project this trade as, hey, I really think Green Bay is going to move up. I'm just looking over what it could cost to move back a few spots and what you could get in return. Now, we're going to talk more about this in just a second here. But first things first, shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including Georgia. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Let me give you an example of what selections look like. So here are some for the big dance coming up here. We're taking the more on Johnny Broom because they're just giving that to you right there. And then we got a couple of mores and lesses throughout the rest of the weekend as well. So if you want to have some extra interest while watching the games this weekend, check out Prize Picks. The second half of basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once more, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So let's say the Falcons traded back with the Packers. What about this potential draft selection for rounds 1 and 2? You've got Mykel Williams from Georgia ending the drought of no Bulldogs in the first round for the Falcons. Then I went with Siobhan Revel, the cornerback from ECU, who I'll talk more in detail about in just a moment. And then I went with the Ohio State former big-time recruit defensive end JT Tuimoloau, who I think could be a fun round 2 target. We'll start with Williams, though, who I'm really beginning to hone in on more. I'd like to see more production. You guys know how important production is to me, but I'm willing to factor in his youth and also the injury bug that he played through in 2024 with that nagging ankle injuries. And despite that, he still put up some pretty solid production in terms of sacks and pressures, especially in some of the big games like the SEC Championship against Texas, where I think you should really zoom in when making evaluations on players. How do they look when the lights are the brightest? So Williams, 6'5", 265. He is a dominant physical specimen, just like every other Georgia Bulldog the last few years entering the draft. And that seems like something Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris could really gravitate towards. Is there's not just a raw player here, like there is plenty of production and he's got a lot of tools in his tool chest, but there is plenty that he can improve on. And for how young he is, I think at pick 23, you don't have every single player available, so there's a little bit of beggars can't be choosers mentality, but I think willing to move back 8 spots would say the Packers and gain an extra second-round pick could make it all worth it. Now, the other 2 selections I made for round 2. Siobhan Revel, the ECU cornerback who missed a lot of 2024 with an ACL injury, and then JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Let's start with Siobhan Revel. So, like I mentioned, he didn't play a whole lot this past season. He tore his ACL, but he had a rough path, let's put it that way to be nice, getting up to the FBS level, but he's a football player, and he's got incredible physical traits in terms of his wingspan, 6'2", great size, and teams definitely value the height and the wingspan for corners because a quarter an inch, half an inch, the difference between a touchdown and breaking a pass up. So I think this could be a really fun pick for Atlanta when it comes to a developmental project. He'll be coming off a torn ACL, so you're not tossing him right into the fire. You've got Mike Hughes ready to start for you opposite of A.J. Terrell. But that to me is just a 1-year contract, 2 years max when it comes to guaranteed money owed to him. So you could have Revel as a round 2 pick, sit on the bench, learn for a full season, let that ACL, let that knee really recover, and then you toss him into a larger role year 2 of his career when he's got some good feet under him. So I like this pick for the Falcons in round 2 when it comes to the future and finding maybe a best player available type of selection when still looking for players of positions of need. And then finally, we went with the Ohio State Buckeye, JT Tuimoloau, who had a little bit of a disappointing start in Columbus. He was a huge recruit for the Bucs. I think it was like a 5-star recruit, and you can just see the production just really wasn't there the first few seasons like you expect a big-name recruit to be. But last year for Ohio State, 12.5 sacks, 51 pressures. Maybe most impressive of all, of those 12.5 sacks, he had 6.5 of them come during 4 college football playoff games. That is when you want your best players playing their best. If he had 12.5 sacks because he was beating up on the school of deaf and blind and all the other bye games early in the season, all right, that's going to pad the stats but not carry over to the NFL. Nope. He was playing the best teams, right? Supposedly, it's a college football playoff. He was playing Tennessee. He was playing Oregon, playing Texas, playing Notre Dame. And he was a buzzsaw. He went through everyone. And I think for round 2, while he may not be the greatest pure athlete, doesn't have insane lateral quickness, doesn't have extreme bend or burst or something like that, the guy showed me he can rush the passer when you need him to. So for those reasons, and in round 2, I'm willing to take a flyer on someone who may not be a guy that jumps out of the gym, but a guy that gets 6.5 sacks en route to a college football championship. And also, if you were to trade back and acquire an additional second-round pick, it's going to help with the overall and much-needed youth movement on defense. Look at these 10 players you'd have on that side of the football, all under the age of 25. Mykel Williams doesn't even turn 21 till the summer. JT's in the same boat, turning 22 in a few weeks. Javon Revel is 22. Brandon Dorlus, Zach Harrison, Rook, Clark Phillips, all just 23 years old. DeMarco Hellams at 24, missed all of last season. He could step in and be a very cheap replacement for Justin Simmons. Braylon Trice, we haven't really seen much at all. He's only 24. And Troy Anderson, while he's going to be going into his 3rd season with the Falcons, he is still under 26 as well. You've got 10 players who in the next 2 or 3 seasons could have big roles on this defense as either starters or rotational pieces. And adding a little bit more youth to that side of the football when there's not a great free agency option out there, I think is probably the best course of action. Listen, if there was some stud on the free agent market, I'd go after that and say, sure, you can always go young. That sounds fun. But if there's something that's proven, a known commodity, damn these lights, out there, then just go with that option. But there really isn't. So instead of trying to force it, how about we just take the cheaper option and the younger option with the draft? So let me know, would you trade back from pick number 15? If you can find someone willing to move up and give you a fair offer, I'm in. I think it's such a deep edge rusher class that the guy who gets taken 3rd overall in terms of the 3rd edge rusher taken versus the 5th, it's not a huge drop-off this year. So adding an extra round 2 pick, yeah, I think I like the possibility of Mykel Williams and JT over just, say, Mike Green from Marshall. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Sorry for kind of the light, snafus. It's just a little bit of a work in progress still, but we will be back with more content for the Dirty Birds all week long, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet.